Okay, so y'all had some time to think about each of these. I'd love to hear what a SQL query for getting the lengths of all songs. And just one thing I didn't mention is we are working from the set list repo again. So if you obviously, like we're alluding to certain tables in a database, and so we're thinking about songs and artists. So if you do want to try this out in the Rails console or in the DB console, like just go into your set list repo to try that out. So if we wanted to get the lengths of all songs, what would that SQL query look like? Any takers? Jake, what do you think?
Is that just select length from songs?
Cool. But to me, okay. And then how about the active record? Any takers? Carson, what do you think?
It would be select. Sorry, we're on active record. It is song.select parentheses colon length.
Okay. Cool. Let's go into our Rails console as well and take a look at these as we call them out. Okay, so I'm in, I'll just get out of this so you can see. I'm in Rails S, C, not S, Rails console.
We can only see the Word or the Google Doc.
Oh no. Okay, give me just a second. I thought I shared my whole desktop. I'll try that one more time. How about now? What do you see?
Good, yeah, your terminal.
Okay, cool. And if I move it, can you see the Google Doc again?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Rails C, and let's see, what did we have? We had, I'm going to go to actually Rails DB first and do the SQL statement. So select length from songs. Select length from songs. Cool. And let's look at all of our songs so we know what data we're working with. This data isn't great, but I've got two songs. One of them has a length, one of them doesn't. And so this returned two rows, one with a length and one not. So that looks great. And then here, we're going to do the active record version. So song.select length. Song.select length. Okay, cool. So we do get two song objects. And just as we expected, one of them has a length of 345, one has a length of nil. Now, I think it's interesting with select, we also get the whole object, not the whole object, but we get an ID of nil with that as well, which is, I think, kind of a weird active record kind of quirk. I don't know if that's a quirk, but I think that's weird. And I don't necessarily like that sometimes. So what would be another way to get rid of this ID nil if we just wanted to see the length of a song? Any ideas? Let's go with Garrett. I see your hand was raised. Are you?
I had a question, but I also could let you know what this one is.
Okay. Let us know an alternate and then ask the question.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pluck.
Okay, so what would that full statement look like?
I think it's just like select or song dot pluck, and then length, if I recall. Like I know pluck will take out the specific thing we're looking for. the syntax. This is my guess. I kind of forget the exact syntax.
Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna make this a little bit bigger. So we got, let me just rerun that.
Oh,
That gave us an array of just the lengths. Whereas this actually gave us an array of song active record relation objects. So just something interesting to keep in mind, the difference between the two. But yeah, I think either one of those is fine. Cool. All right. Did you have another question, Garrett?
Yeah, I had a question about the SQL version of this query.
Sure.
So we had a brief discussion in our group. So if we just did like select length, is it required to identify the specific table with the from song syntax, or does it work just fine to do select length?
Well, let's try it. Select length. I have a feeling that, I don't know, what do we think? Any guesses on what might happen? Is this what you're talking about, Garrett?
Yeah, it'd be select length. And like, I think, so my like instinct is telling me, well, like the first question that pops in my head is like, well, what if we're working in a database that has multiple tables? Like, how is it going to know? And maybe both those tables have a length column. So like, how would it know specifically which table it's getting it from? But if you have a database with only one table, then maybe it'll work because it will just know, okay, we just need to pull from that one table. I don't know.
Sure. Any other thoughts or guesses? Feel free to just shout them out. Will this work? Will it not work? What do we think? I see some head shakes. Cool, let's try it. Okay. Error, column length does not exist. Select length. So from my understanding, when you have a select statement, you need to specify the specific table that you want it from. So I think to Garrett's point, like you do need to specify the table that you want to get the column from. Otherwise, I don't think the select statement will work. So that's my understanding of how select works. There needs to be both the select, like the column, and then also the table needs to be specified as well. All right, I'm gonna do one more. I would love to see, let's see if we can get to maybe one a little more complicated. So I think this one seems cool. Get the titles of the songs with a play count greater than 0, sorted alphabetically. Any volunteers on this one? I see James.
All right.
I think.
So we're going to select titles from songs where play count greater than sign 0. Yep, perfect.
Okay.
And then we're going to put in order by.
Okay.
And then we're going to put in title.
Title. Okay. Cool. Okay, so let's run over to our Rails console and see what this looks like. Just gonna copy this. Put that in there. Hopefully I got everything right. So select title from songs. The play count is greater than 0.
You might want to take the S off the titles after select.
Oh, okay, everything else looks good. Okay, and then let's take a look at all of our songs. Of course, one of them only has a play count and one of them is no. So this looks correct. I'm curious about if you don't specify a way to order, what the default order is. Does anyone know?
Would it be the ID?
Oh no, we're telling it what column to order by, but how is it ordering that column by
Yes.
default? Anybody know? George, I see your hand.
Ascending.
Ascending.
Yeah, I would assume ascending, I think.
Yeah, well, we have no way to check it right now, but I believe it is ascending as well. So cool, awesome. Let's try to do the active record version of that. Yeah, any takers there? Okay, George, go ahead.
I guess I could try. I don't know if I got that right, but it would be capital S song
Mhm.
dot select, and it would be title dot where, and then in parens play count is greater than question mark, and then comma 0, and then end parens, and then dot order.
Okay, like that.
I think so.
Okay. Cool. Let's try this. So song.select title dot where play count is greater than something and that something is 0 dot order. Okay. Undefined method play count.
Alex, I think this is an issue when you copy and paste from other text editors, you're getting like a different quote. Like I think you might need to replace those quotes with
With a
like
regular.
just, yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Because I see this now here. I was like, what?
Like, oh, I did it wrong. Sorry.
I was just thinking like, I've never seen that before. Okay, cool. So we're here. Thank you, Brian. Comma 0. And then you had dot order.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like order needs some arguments. What do you think?
Yeah, so I guess order ascending.
Okay,
Um,
like that.
I guess I don't know. Order
Let's just
by
try.
title. Let's do title since that's the thing we're looking for.
Okay.
I think it might need to be colon title. I don't know this.
So what if we did a string? Order here. All these errors are so nice. Undefined local variable ascending. And then it expected, I think it probably needs to be a string.
Okay.
There-
Whew, thank you for helping.
So we got this, which looks correct. Raspberry Beret. Cool. All right, we're gonna move on. Oh, Kira, I see you have a hand raised. We're gonna move on after.
Yeah, I just had a real quick question about what is the difference between play count is greater than 0 and play count is greater than question mark 0?
Question mark 0. So I think play count is greater than 0 is just the syntax for SQL. But for active record, I think this is just like I don't actually know what the formal, maybe like definition or like what you would call this. Brian or Tim, do you know this little fragment?
With the question mark in it.
Yeah, and why you have to do that and can't just do like play count is greater than 0 directly?
You can do play count is greater than 0 directly. That should work. I know in the active record docs, they prefer the like question mark syntax. I'm not, oh, well, that you would have to wrap in a string.
Wrap it. Okay, make it a string.
Yeah. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure why, but I do know that the like question mark version is preferred.
Okay.
It's a
Okay, thank you.
it's a safe way to string interpolate, is what my
Uh-huh.
mentor told me.
Oh, thanks, Brett.
That, okay, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. Okay, Will, I see your hand up as well. Was that a residual hand? Or
Sorry, no, yep. Earlier you mentioned that pluck returns an array, whereas the select returns the active record object. Is it preferred that if we're passing something to our view, should we try and pass it in as an array when possible versus an active record set of objects, with the whole idea being like, let's not do anything active record related in the view? Or is either one fine?
I think it just depends on the data that you need. If you need more than like one column, you might be better off like working with an object. And then if you just need, if literally all you need is like the song title, then I think it's preferable to get as little data back in your query as necessary. But that's what my understanding. I'd be curious to hear if anyone else has any other pros and cons. Maybe Tim or Brian.
And just as a broader context, and not for this class, but I'm just still trying to understand exactly where MVC is in violation, like what's okay to pass into the view and what's not. And it just seems like the general story is anything from active record should not be done in the view. But maybe I'm.
Well, yeah, like you don't want to actually be making queries from the view. But I think when you get a query and you get back objects, like that's different than like making a query from the view. Does that make sense? So if you make a query and you get back these active record objects, you can use them just like objects and you can pass those to the view versus like actually having like the query itself live in the view.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay, cool.
I think
Okay.
this afternoon's class will help clear that up as well.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. I want to keep going because I want to get to the next part, but Joshua and Garrett, I see your hands up. Let's hold on to your questions and we'll talk about those in a little bit. Okay. All right, cool. So let's get into specifically talking about SQL join queries. What we're going to do is look at in our Rails DB console. I'm going to use this as our way to just visualize kind of what we're doing. And up until now, we've really worked with single tables. And so all of our data that we've needed has come from one table. But it might get to a point, pretty soon we're going to get to a point where we're going to need data across multiple tables. And instead of trying to combine that data together using raw Ruby, we need to use SQL because it's much more efficient. It'd be easier to use one query to get all of the data we need rather than multiple queries and then some Ruby, processing that data using Ruby. That's just going to be time consuming. It's going to be expensive, and it's going to require more code as well. So we're going to try to do this in SQL. So if we think about a scenario where maybe we're on a page and we want to show, all of our artist data, but we also want to show all of the songs related to an artist, okay? So we'll say we're on an artist index page and we want to see all of our artists and then we also see all of the songs related to that artist. We're going to need information from two tables. So the first is the artist table. So let's visualize what our artist table looks like right now. So I'm just going to do a quick grab everything from our artist table. So select star from artists. And that should give me my whole artist table. Don't look at my data. You can tell I was experimenting with some things. So we've got all these great artists and some of them have the same name, which is fine. And then say I want to see all of the songs associated with these artists. So I'm just going to grab all of my songs. So all of the columns, select star from songs to grab the whole table. And now I can see, oh, I've only got 2 songs. And they have a foreign key of artist ID on them. So if we had to think about what artists were associated, like what artist is associated with Raspberry Beret? If we look up the artist ID on the artist table, what artist is that?
Prince.
Prince, that's right. Okay, and likewise, the pink song is what artist?
Pink.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, cool. So that's how we would associate like artist with the songs. And so in some ways, like we could, do this in Active Record where you do like song, or I should do this. I'm just going to say artist.first, which is Prince. And then we can use, since we have that Active Record association built out where an artist has many songs and a song belongs to an artist, we can do, let me do that and actually save it to a variable. We can do artist.songs, and we should get back this song associated with it. But if we think about it, we had to do 2 queries to get that information. So I had to select my artist from my artist table. And I took the first one, that was the first query. And then I had to let the song where the artist ID equaled the first artist, right? So that was 2 separate queries to get that data. So let's think about a way that we could get all of that data in a single query. And we do that by joining the tables together. And so a SQL join is really a way to grab data from different tables and put them together in a temporary table so that you can have access to all of the data together. So we're creating a temporary, really like in-memory joins table. It's not something that think of it differently than like a many-to-many relationship where we create an actual joins table where that information lives permanently. We're just doing this on a temporary basis so we can get all of the data back that we need at one time. Questions about that? So we're going to create a temporary joins table in SQL. So what that would look like is this. Okay. So we're going to do select artists, and we'll go over the syntax for this in a second. Artist.star. And so I want all of the artist information, and I'm specifying the artist table specifically because I'm giving select a comma separated list of different tables of data that I want back.
Hey, Alex.
Yes.
Could you increase your terminal's text size just a bit?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Is that better or bigger still?
Maybe 1 click bigger. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Absolutely. All right. So we have artist dot star and then songs dot star. So that, what is that telling me? What does the syntax mean? Just to check. What does artist.star mean? Brett.
Artist. Sorry.
Artist.all, songs.all.
Sorry, say that again, Brett.
It's like artist.all, songs.all.
Yeah, so it's like all of the columns from the artist table and all of the columns from the songs table. Yep, totally. So, so we have to do the select. We're telling them what columns we want. And then the next thing we do is we tell them from what tables we want. And now, instead of a single table, we're going to use this cool join statement, and we're going to do artists. So we're joining songs, the songs table to the artist table. And then we're going to tell it what to join on. Artists.id equals songs.artist.id. So the thing about doing a SQL join is that there has to be a common column between the two tables. And so the artist ID is on the is the ID, the primary key of the artist table, but it's also the foreign key. We have an artist underscore ID column on our songs table. So because those two columns are the same between the two tables, we can join the tables together, the data from the two tables together. So when I do this, I get a typo. And I have an extra comma. And now when I do it, bam, I have some data. And I see I have an ID and a name. This looks like it's from the artist table. And then I have another ID, and then I have title, and this looks like it's from the songs table. So what I want to do, I'm curious to know if this is the data that y'all expected to see after joining the two tables together. So what I'm going to do is ask you a couple questions. And I think I'm going to put you back into your breakout rooms, and I want you to discuss. So take a mental picture of this. There's only 2 rows, and it looks like we've got some artist information, and we've also got some song information in this. So the question to ask is, what did this query do? And then why don't we see all of the artists and all of the song data? Okay. Oops, I didn't need to do that. All right, here you go. I'm gonna open those rooms back up, give you a couple minutes to talk about this, and I'll bring y'all back, okay? Oh no, I don't want you there. Uh-oh. Okay. Oh,
You got robot voice, Grant. We can't really understand you.
yeah. Well, blame it on your headphones. I saw you point to them. Okay, sounds good.
Alex, do you want to pause the recording?
Yeah. I'm just gonna make you host right now, Tim.
Okay, cool.
Okay, we've got everybody back. So let's hear from breakout room 10. What did y'all think? And Tim, you're gonna have to tell us who breakout room 10 is.
Yep, it's Curtis and Sage.
Okay, Curtis and Sage, what do you think this query did?
We said that because there was no song with a foreign key of 3, so it just pulled the ones that had one from each table, so it didn't reach the Zac Brown band.
Okay, cool. So you're thinking that it just pulled.
Or I guess it's off of the lesson data, but yeah.
Okay. You think that it just pulled the songs that had common data in each table?
Yeah, where a foreign key existed as an ID in the other one, like
Yeah,
they link to each other.
cool. Well, that is accurate. That is indeed what happened. But we can see that it did join the tables together. And in this case, it only pulled the data that was common between the two tables. And so this is a specific type of join. And there are different types of joins. So we could get potentially different combinations of data from each table depending on the type of join you did. So did anyone else talk about anything else? Maybe breakout room 5. Who's that, Tim?
I think that was us. No, that's about what we came to. I don't think we had anything else on top of that.
Okay, cool.
That was Jake, Kira, and Shonda.
I stand corrected.
Okay, well, perfect.
I actually had a quick question, and I was in that group. And this, I have a feeling, might be talked about in class today, so you don't have to answer it if that's the case. But why would we not just create an official table or what's the opposite of temporary? Permanent.
Permanent. Well, if you have a lot of tables and you want to display lots of different combinations of the data in each of those tables, your database is going to get pretty darn big. And so it may not, and you may only be using a specific combination of data like once. So it doesn't necessarily pay to make that a permanent table if you're not gonna really be like pulling that data very often.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's actually what Shonda came up with, like when we had that thought experiment in our group.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's do this. Let's go ahead and take a palm. Sorry, that was a little bit longer of a stretch. We will come back at 9, we'll call it 9:53. And then we're going to talk about the different types of joins.
Thank you, 53.
Thanks, 53.
It's 9:53. Let's go ahead and get started again. Ooh, it's 9:54. All right, so we're going to talk about the 3 different types of join table or joins, SQL joins. Okay, so I'm going to make this big so you can only see one at a time. So let's talk about first an inner join. So this is actually what we just demonstrated. And this is the default type of join in SQL and also Active Record. So we've got 2 tables, and we're going to demonstrate this or, depict this as a Venn diagram where only the data that's common between the 2 tables is going to be returned or is going to be added to that 3rd temporary join table. So if we come back into our Rails DB console, we'll see from our 2 tables, I've got all of these different artists and I've got these 2 songs, and only the artists that are associated with these 2 songs, so that is Prince and Pink, are combined with the song data and returned. So just the common data between the 2 tables, and really the common data between the shared column artist ID, oh, sorry, I should go here, artist ID and the ID from the artist table. So those 2 are, that's the common data, 1 and 2, and then 1 and 2 here. And that's is what gets put in that inner join in that table. Questions about that? That's called an inner join, and it's the default type of join in Rails in Active Record and SQL. Okay, let's move on to the next type of join. This next one is called a left join. And so what do you think the left join does if we had to use this diagram as an indication. What do we think? How about Kevin? Kevin, what do you think?
I am not sure.
So if we think about the green is the data that gets returned, and it's only the data, if we go back to our inner join, it's only the data between table 1 and table 2. What do we think would happen here? How much of the data in table 1 would get returned?
Most of it.
Sure, yeah. So probably all of it.
Yeah.
The circle is filled in. And then how much of the data do we think would get returned from table 2?
Like only a small portion.
Mm-hmm. And what would determine what portion of that data gets returned?
DID, right? From table 2.
Yeah, exactly. The common data between table 1 and table 2. So a left join in this way will return all of the data from table 1 and then only the data from table 2 that also is in table 1. So only the common data. So in this case, in that column, that shared column, only the data that's in both table 1 and table 2. So if we were to visualize that, we would do that. And let me just specify in my join statement, I'm going to highlight that on the screen. Table 1 is going to be the songs table, and table 2 is going to be the artist table. And so if we're doing a left join, the column or the table on the left is the songs, and then the table on the right is the artist. So we're going to get all of the song data, and then we're going to get only the artist data that lines up with the song data. And honestly, my data is not great, so this is probably not going to be as dramatic of a result as we might want. So the only thing I changed in my statement is instead of just doing a join, which defaults to inner join, I did a left join. So select, all of their information from songs, which is on the left, and artists, which is on the right. And I see here that I get something very similar. And that's only because if we remember my song data, I only had 2 songs to begin with. So it gave me all of our songs, and then it gave me the artist data associated with those songs that was common between the artist table and the song table. Coming back up here. Okay. Now, if I were to swap that and make my left table the artist table and my right table the song table, it'd probably look a little bit different. Should we do that to see what it looks like? Yeah. Okay, let's do it. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to do select artists. Now artist is my left table, or table 1. And I'm going to left join on songs. And then where I think this will work if I leave it as artist.id equals song.artist.id, but I like to keep everything in order. So I'm going to do songs.artist.id equals artist.id. Okay, just to keep everything in line in the same way. And now I can see this left join. So I get all of my artist data, and then I get only the song data that's common between the artist and the song table. Does that make sense? What questions do we have about this? Or comments?
Alex, I have a question, but I think Will has had his hand up.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Will. I didn't see you
No,
there.
no worries. I forgot I had that up. Don't worry about it. We'll come back later. Thanks,
Okay.
Jared. No.
Cool.
So I just wanted to confirm that when you're doing a left join, the way that Rails or SQL knows it's left and right is whatever you put after the from and whatever you put after the left join.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So the first artist or the first table that you specify is going to be the left table. And then the second is going to be the right table. Yep. Okay. And then let's come over here. The third type of join that you might see is a right join, where it's just the opposite. We'd get all of the data from the right table or table 2, and only the data that's common between table 1 and table 2 as well. And we denote that in the same, very similar way. Instead of left join, we say right join. Right. And again, if you don't specify left or right, the other option is inner join. If you don't specify the type of join and you just say join, it's going to default to inner join. So we want to say right join here. And again, our artist table is on the left and our songs table is on the right. So we're going to get all of the data from the songs table and only the data that matches the artist underscore ID. And really, I should say specifically only the data that adheres to this on statement where the song artist underscore ID matches or equals the artist.id. So only the common data here is going to get returned along with all of the data from our table on the right, which is our artist song table, which is our songs table. If I read that correctly. Okay, so all of our song data and then only the data that matches. And here's our artist data here. Now, if I were to go here, actually, I'm going to stop right there. I'm not going to do anything else. All right, questions, thoughts, 3 different types of joins. They do 3 different types of things. Three combinations of data.
Can you see our hands, Alex?
Say that again.
Can you see their hands in the participants panel or no?
I honestly, it was popping up on my screen, but it's not. So I apologize. I didn't look at the participants channel directly.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I see them now. Garrett. Okay. Thank you, Tim. Garrett.
So I had a question about, a question about this, and then I have like actually I'll ask my super quick one first. This was just going back to when we were doing like the SQL stuff earlier on at the beginning of the class. When we are trying to sort something in an ascending manner, is it best practice to just put the column we are sorting by, since it automatically will sort ascending, or should we always specifically put ascending even when that's happening automatically?
I think it's better to be explicit.
Okay.
Allowed.
And then,
yeah. Well, go ahead. No,
thank you. And then specifically about this, what we're going over right now, is going over how to write some of these queries out in active record something that was a part of this lesson, or is that something? Okay, if it is, then I'll just hold that for later.
We're going to do that next, actually.
Cool. Okay.
Yep. Cool. All right. Joshua.
Yeah, I have a question about just like from a practical standpoint, what's the purpose of a right join if we have a left join? Is it like convention to write the order of our tables in a way that like the table that has a dependency is on like the left sides and then, or is it, I guess, like why a right join if we can effectively just use a left join, just ordering the tables in a specific way?
That's a good question. I honestly have never used any type of join other than an inner join. And I was trying to do a little bit of research too before this to be like, why would you use a right join? And what I found was that people rarely ever use right joins. And some of the information I found was it's kind of more of like a preference of how you visualize and like think about the data, which would maybe lean you toward using a left or a right join maybe. But I don't have a good answer for that. So I'm curious if Tim or Brian, you might have some other anecdotes or if you've ever used one in the wild before, why.
I haven't used a right join either.
Yeah, it seemed like they're very rare. Like people don't really use it too often.
Is the question, why would you do right or left join, or right specifically? Because I think of right as just like the opposite of a left join.
Yeah, it's just right specifically.
Yeah, so to me, like right join and left join are kind of the same thing, just like depending on if you swap the order of the tables like Alex did earlier. So to me, the question is more of like, why would you ever do anything other than an inner join? And I think this makes more sense once we get to grouping and aggregating, because sometimes you need to make a calculation. And if something like doesn't have data associated with it, you still want to make a calculation and get like a 0 value. That's the time when I've used these left or right joins.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, totally. So, cool. I'll just leave it at that. All right. Will, what question do you have?
Yeah, so kind of a conceptual database question, but would you ever join on something other than a foreign or primary key? And said differently, like in a well-designed database, would you never have to join on anything other than a foreign or primary key?
I think that's a good question. I think there are circumstances where you may want to join on something other than a foreign or primary key. I think they would be rare. I think you'd have to have a really strong case for having that column be in multiple tables. But I can't think of anything specifically off of my head. Most of the time, like it's just going to be the foreign and primary key. And I agree. When you do have a database that is normalized, like you shouldn't necessarily be tracking the same column in multiple databases or multiple tables. Sorry, to be specific. English is hard sometimes. Yeah. I'm gonna lean on Tim and Brian too to see if y'all have other opinions here or thoughts.
If you knew that your keys were somehow corrupted, like if you like figured out that like the data was corrupted on that column, and you couldn't figure out a way to like normalize some foreign or primary key column, then you could like join on something else. But I think that that's the only thing that comes to mind for me.
And I think what you said is probably right, Will. If your database is designed well and maintained well, you probably won't need to join on anything else.
Yeah. It feels like you get into that workaround situation of like, ooh, my data is kind of crappy. Like, how else can I figure this out? That's what it starts to feel like. Okay, cool. Let's go to Kate. See a question from you.
So I just have an instance of where that might happen. In a lot of companies, you have different sets of sign up forms in particular, where you have an email address, you're signing up for this list, that list, whatever else. Sometimes you do have to compare, like you have to get specific data from one table, that's the sign up list, that is the list of current customers, versus the list of people that have signed up for your newsletter. And the IDs for those people may be completely different. So you use something like email address where it would be exact to pull specific information. Like I've seen that happen. It is not a great use case, but I've seen it happen. So there's an instance for you.
Nice. I love it. Thanks for sharing that, Kate. Yeah, I just start to cringe when I think about all of the horrible, messy data that gets collected in various places that then you're like irresponsible for trying to combine together. So yeah, that's great. I love it. All right. Let's go to Brett.
So you'd pretty much use a join statement when, like if you had a joins table between two data or tables, then you wouldn't need to use a joins statement, right? Could you already have the association set up?
Yeah. If you had, yes. Yeah. Well, here's the deal. Under the hood, you're still, when you use an active record association, it's still using a SQL join statement to get the information from both tables. So if I were to do, oh, maybe not. Maybe I'm lying. I think the answer is to your question, like restate your question or like what you said, and then I'll answer it again.
Yeah, so like if I had two tables that had a join table,
yeah,
then I don't necessarily need a join statement because I already have my associations. But if I had two tables that aren't related and then I have to use the join statement to essentially make a quick joins table to get that information.
I want to take a look at this real fast, just so we can be super clear about it. I'm going to open this up and I'm going to take a look at my schema. And so in this, this specific instance, we have, where's my DB? Okay. We've got these two tables, and one of them has a foreign key of artist ID on it. And we set up a one-to-many relationship between these tables. And so if I look at my model, I see an artist has many songs and I see a song belongs to an artist. So we still have a relationship, and that's denoted by the presence of the foreign key on the songs table. But we don't have a permanent joins table. And so yes, we'll have to use a SQL join statement to get information, to get this information all in one query. And if we think about, I assume you're asking about an instance where, say we had like a many-to-many relationship where like a playlist, well, I don't remember what many-to-many relationship did we build out in this set list repo? Who can tell me?
It was songs and playlists.
Songs and playlists, okay. And then we had we had a joins table, right? A through table there. And what was that called?
Playlist songs.
Playlist songs. Okay. So in that case, I want to say that you're still going to use a SQL join statement, but it's going to go to that table to look up the data for you. What do we think, Tim and Brian? Am I speaking the truth here? I would want to actually see it, like see the SQL statement when you are like trying to utilize those relationships, if it does a join for you.
If you have an association that goes through one or more tables, it will have to do a join in the background to make that work.
So I still think it's still going to be a join, but it is going to be referencing that table to like figure out how everything connects. That's what I think. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, cool. Sorry, that was like a long round. I had to really process that before I could answer that for you. And you know, like I think a good thing to do would be to play around with that. I don't think I have that code pulled down currently on my local, and I don't want to take the time to do that right now. But when you are in your Rails console, you can see like the active or the SQL that's being generated. And so I would take a look specifically at the SQL that's being generated when you try to do like playlist, you know, like .songs or songs.playlist or something like that, to try to and see like what's happening in the SQL. Okay.
Alex, I have it up. Do you want me to show it, or do you want to move on?
Show it real fast. I'll stop sharing. You go ahead, Brian. I think that would be good to see.
So I've got I've got S, which is just a song. So then if I do song.playlists,
yeah, cool. So I see like when I look at that SQL, I see like inner join, yeah, on the joins table. And then you're like joining that to the you're looking at that joins table to find the song ID from the joins table, and then it would pull the playlist from there. So it's not necessarily doing an inner join on the playlist table, but it's looking at the playlist songs table to get the data. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Who else? Any other questions? Okay, let's move on. I'll share my screen one more time. I want to keep going and talk about the elements of a join query. So we've got 3 things you got to have for a join query, okay? A select. And if we were to break down the join that I wrote out earlier, where we are selecting the specific columns that we want to get back. So in this case, we want all of the artist data and we want all of the song data. And then I just grouped like the from as part of that select. And then the join itself, we have to have a join in our query that tells you what tables you want to join on. And so songs, join artists. And then we have this on statement. And the on statement is specifying the basically common data or the condition that needs to be met in order for us to pull the data. So the artist ID needs to equal the songs.artist ID. So the artist ID from the artist table needs to equal the artist ID from the songs table, and then we'll pull that row of data. Okay. So the no statement, the on statement, like we mentioned before, is often going to be something like primary key equals foreign key. That's the condition that needs to be met in order for us to pull that data into the table. But it could be any shared column between the 2 tables. And Kate shared that example of like, well, your IDs might be different even though it's the same people. And the only thing common between them might be the email address. And so you might use a different table in that case. All right, so simple thing, not simple, but three things. Any questions on those three things? They have to be there in order to form a join query. All right, let's move on. Oh, wait, I saw a hand. Curtis.
Maybe this is something we'll talk about later. So if this is like too much of a rabbit hole, we can move on. But like, can you join more than 2 tables?
The answer is yes. You can join more than 2 tables. But in the same way, I think about, I had a conversation in a check-in where we were thinking about these multiple, like one-to-many relationships between the data, like in the project. And it was like, how do I think about like all these like one-to-many relationships over here? Like this has a one-to-many relationship, but then this has like a one-to-many relationship over here. And then, you know, like I like to think of it as the relationship or like how each table is connected. So if I need to get to, if I want to find artists that have playlists like created with their songs, I have to go from artist to song to playlist songs, right? To get the playlist like we just saw. So I'm joining multiple tables together to find all of that common data. But I like to think of it as like a table to table kind of relationship where I just start by thinking about artists and how that relates to songs. And then I do that join. And then I think about song and how that relates to playlist song. And I do that join. And so that way you can kind of separate it out. But in essence, you would be joining multiple tables together, more than 2. But it's the same process. Yeah, so yes, the answer is yes.
Cool, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about SQL versus active record joins. So the good thing about active record is it gives you really nice syntax to work with, and it makes things a little bit more streamlined and less verbose. So if we come and think about, you know, this SQL statement here, where we have select the columns from, you know, artist join songs on songs, right? It's like this long statement. If we want to do that in active record, we have some handy dandy methods that we get to use. And so that same query is going to look something like this. Let me just make sure I didn't skip over anything in my notes as well. Okay. It's going to be this, artist.joins songs. So we're calling the joins method on artist, and then passing in the table as a symbol. And we get some artist information. Does that look the same to y'all as the SQL statement? I'll do a quick refresher. So we definitely want 2 artists, but we also want some song information as well. And so when I come back here, we have the 2 artists, but did we get the song information? What do you think? Is it there? If I were to do this, and I just want to get the first artist from that joins table. And then if I were to say first dot, like title, because that would be something we had over here. We should be able to get that. It's not there, undefined method title for artist. Why do we think that is? Aiden, what do you think?
Ah, I think that it's because we didn't specify in our select statement that we had to also select songs.
Yeah, I agree. How did we know that? How did you come to that conclusion, Aiden?
Because when we looked in the SQL statement, it didn't have the songs as well in the select, and what it returned was only artists. So.
Yeah. Awesome. So when you're doing, anytime you're doing active record, I recommend looking at the SQL to see exactly what's been done. Okay. So here, I didn't specify a select like in my artist join songs. And so, and I'll just do it again, just to make it super clear. Artist join songs, it defaults to the class or the table that you start with. So your select statement is only going to grab everything from the table that you started on, which is the artist table. So if you want to find like the artist and the song data together, you have to be explicit about what you want back. So we want both the artist and the song information when we join artists to songs. Oh, come on. Artists. No, that's not right. Any ideas on what I did wrong here?
Does it need to be in quotes? Yeah.
I don't know. Let's try. Yep, it does. Awesome. Okay, so now we see, okay, great. We have our SQL query looks correct. Select artist dot star, comma songs dot star from artist interjoin songs on songs dot artist ID equals artist dot ID. That looks like the join statement that we started with over here. Cool. And so we would expect to see all of this data together that we get back. But in our return value, I still only see this. So what I'm going to do is show you that it's actually there, but you just can't see it, unfortunately. Okay. So I'm going to grab from that joins table, I'm going to grab the first artist, which I believe would be Prince. Perfect. And so I'll say first dot title, because now I know that my data should look like this. I should have all of this information. So I should be able to get to the title, which I'm expecting it to be the Raspberry Beret. Which I'm curious, has anyone heard that song? Like, I honestly have never heard that song, and I'm curious now to hear it. So if I do first dot title, I get it, because I actually do have all of that information. It's just not necessarily showing it to me here when it returns the information. But it's all there. And I could do first dot play count, and it'd be there, and then first dot length, and it's there. So I have all the information together that I want. It's just harder to see in active record. So always look at the SQL statement, that this query that's generated, to understand what's actually going on under the hood. And there we go. So you can see all of it. Okay. All right. Garrett, What are you thinking?
Hey, so my understanding is that like when you do, whether it's an SQL query or a active record query, is that join table now just, I guess, stored in like the cache or like short-term memory? So is that why, like, for example, you can call first.title and that new join table object like will still exist after the actual query that you created it on. But if you were to like exit out and then come back, you'd have, it doesn't exist anymore. So like it will exist as long as like sort of you're in the same instance, or like, I guess, yeah, when does this exist? When does it not exist, I guess?
Yeah, I think I can give you like a high level overview of that. I don't know if I can give you like the specifics, but basically, as in order to like run the query, the joins table gets created. And then I think as soon as it gets the data that it needs, it turns that data into active record objects and returns the objects for you. And so in this kind of in our, like console session, now we've got the objects themselves, but I don't think the joins table exists anymore because we don't need it because we've got the actual data. I think that's right. And I'm not even sure how you would check that, to be honest, but I think that's how it's working. But yes, it's all just like in memory. And like you said, like short term, it goes away, I think, as soon as it's not needed anymore. Okay, Will.
Yeah, sorry, I think Googling a similar question while trying to answer my own question, but didn't have time. I was wondering if there was a method you could call on first that would tell you the list. And it looks like maybe there's one called dot column names. Is that, if you do first dot column names, does that give you a list of all the underscore names? Yeah. No, okay, all right.
You might have to call that on the class, and you have an object with first.
I think you could do attributes.
Oh, attributes. Okay, cool. Great. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So let's just do a quick refresher. Again, we've got our SQL join statement, which we have the select artists and songs from artists, and then we have the join portion of the statement, which specifies which tables we want to join, which is here. So the select is here. And then the joins is here. And then we have the on, which is here. So 3 elements to the SQL join statement. And then when we come over to active record, it's a little bit more simple. You start with the table that you want to start with. And you specify that you use this joins method, and you specify as a symbol the table that you want to join to, and then the columns that you want to get back from that table. And then again, if you want to do any more like complex operations, like ordering the data, if you want to, aggregate it in some way, like you then can chain on the rest of it there as well. But basically that is a join statement in active record. And what type of join do both SQL and active record default to? Shout it out.
Inner join.
Yes, inner join. And if you don't specify a select statement, what table is it going to default to?
The first one.
Yes, that's correct. So you got to do that. And then in SQL, you have to define, or you have to specify like your select statement. You don't have that option like you do in active record. All right. So one last question. We're going to take a POM, and then we're going to have y'all do some practice on your own. All of these join statements and these active record and SQL queries, where in your code, in your application code, do these things live? According to MVC.
Your model.
Yes. Don't put this in your controller. Don't put this in your view. Put it in your model. And then call either a class or an instance method, depending on what you're doing. But yeah, just wanted to give that a little plug before we move on. All right, let's go ahead and take another palm. We'll come back at 10:42, and then we'll do some practice on your own. Okay, we are all back. I was gonna have y'all go into breakout room groups, but we don't have enough time. I want to give you all some time to take a break before PD starts. So what I'd like to do instead is go ahead and just let's kind of crowdsource what this query would look like. So who sees my terminal? Anyone? Yes. Okay. Let's see. Can I get some brave souls to give me the SQL? And feel free to just like shout out part of it if you know that for sure there's something involved in it, or maybe shout out the whole thing if you got it all. Just somebody give me some things to type. Or raise your hand. All right, John.
So I did stuff, but I have no idea if this stuff works because I only have one song.
Okay.
So I just figured I'll just use this as an opportunity to see if the stuff works.
Sure. That sounds good.
And if not, I'm sorry. So I did a select artists.star, comma, songs.star.
Okay.
From songs, join artists on artists.id equals songs.artist_id. So that part seemed pretty same. And then at the end, I did an order by play count play underscore count. And then a descending. And then a limit 1. But I mean, it didn't, there was no point in the limit 1 because I only have one song.
Well, I have 2 songs.
Oh, you
one
win.
Has a play count and one of them doesn't.
So okay.
We'll see if this works. So one thing you're going to get all of the data.
Oh.
Songs and artists.
Which I don't need, right? I just need
Yeah, I think we just want artist data. We don't really care about the song data itself. We just want to know the artist name that has the song that has the highest play count. So we could get rid of this, potentially, maybe.
Okay.
Should we see should I press enter? I'm just going to do it. Here we go.
Don't do it. It broke.
I don't have semicolon. Come on. There we go.
That's not
right. Why do we think that is? So it gave us P. So we got a song, an artist name, which is cool.
Was it supposed to be ascending?
And we put descending. Why do we think that it put pink first? Any ideas? James, I see your hand.
I'm trying to remember from I think are like SQL active record lessons. The last time we tried to order songs by a play count, for some reason, in descending order, all the songs that didn't have a play count, they popped up first. And then it showed from like the max play count to the smallest play count. So I guess technically it didn't work how we wanted, but technically it worked.
Yeah. How could we get around this? I mean, you could do it ascending and we'd get the right, but if you have multiple songs that don't have null values or aren't blank, you're not going to get it, correctly if you do ascending. So I think descending is correct. Is there a way that we could get rid of this record?
I think you could add a where play count greater than 1.
Okay. So select artists from songs joined artists or songs on artists. I apologize. Sorry, hold on just a second. Can y'all hear that? Okay, I'll keep going. Where would you put the where person?
I would put it in between songs.artistid and order by.
Okay. Where? And that was song.
Yeah, songs.play count. Greater than 1.
And 1?
Or greater than 0, I guess.
Okay. Oh, and I have this as ascending still, so let's change it to descending. See. Yay, that looked like it worked. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so I don't know. Is there another way to get rid of like empty rows with empty values? Does anyone else know? Other than just kind of like filtering them out with this where statement? That's an interesting, and that generally is a question that I have, actually. Cool. Let's real fast see the active record version of that. Or if someone had a different way in active record, maybe that they would do this. I would love to hear it. Any takers, any volunteers?
Yeah, Alex, I had my hand up, but I think I can just ask my question. So I actually didn't have, I just had, because you were asking like if any of us thought there might be a way to like filter those out. So like we were filtering the play count after we had created the join table. So maybe there's a way in creating the actual join table to do the filter there. That way the actual join table you get just won't have it, which will make the subsequent queries easier.
Yeah, maybe. So maybe like, are you thinking somewhere like on the on?
I'm thinking somewhere like before these queries, like when we were actually creating the join table that we're running these queries off of, like what you were doing with John. Maybe there's something we could do in setting up the join table to just not have the join table include. So basically do like the where songs.play count is greater than 0, but instead of doing it in these queries, we could do it in setting up the join table.
So you're saying like move this where over to the left?
Yeah, like somewhere over there. And then that way, the actual join table won't have it. And then we can just query for whatever we want.
Well, I think that the hard part here is that you wouldn't even have access to look at the song's play count before you do the join.
Hey, Alex and Garrett, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut you all off. We gotta wrap it up here and y'all gotta go to PD now.
Well, sorry.
Thank you.
Didn't realize it was 11.